And between the two of you, like I sit there and look from the outside looking in, you're both massively busy. You're doing some stuff together, but you have your own lanes that you're killing it in respectively.
Yeah.
You got a kid on the way. You're building a $1 million home in Texas. It's like you're living the dream to anyone who's out like looking in. Like, what are we missing about like what you put in to get here? Because I know from my own experience that sometimes people are very quick to judge where you're at right now.
Yeah.
And say, oh, you've got it good. You're so blessed.
Yeah.
And I go, well,
I worked for this.
am I blessed?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that like for you? Because it's as a couple, and I would argue as a power couple, you're so set up for success going forward. And someone looks at that and says, well, I want that. Like, what are they not doing that you did to achieve what you have right now?
Well, putting in the time and making sacrifices. So, one of the things financially to build myself up is, I always lived, and still we live below our means, but that was something that I had been doing since, high school when I got my first job. I didn't spend every penny I had. And in college, to be honest, I shopped at Goodwill up until meeting Steve. And then he's like, no, we can get you new clothes. And I was like, okay, just shopping at Goodwill. That's how I was raised. I always shop on clearance. One of the things he appreciated about me in the beginning was you're such a cheap date because I get the least expensive thing on the menu. And I'm always looking for ways to save. So living below your means is a big one that I think that this generation is not good at because it's the treat yourself generation. And sometimes you have to not treat yourself to be able to, for a year I lived in downtown Long Beach. I got a really great deal with a friend to pay like a couple $100s to live in like what was supposed to be like a business unit on like the first floor of like her apartment. And it was just like a room basically. And anyways,
was it legal for that to be a residence?
Probably not. No, it wasn't an ideal living situation, but I spent a couple $100s a month to live there. I saved up enough money to then buy an Airbnb at the end of having saved up all that money. At that point, I could have gotten my own nice apartment for, $2,000+ a month and had my own space and actually had like a living room and like a bathroom that didn't have like a handicap like sign on it.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Like it was, but at the time I was like, this is something I want to do. Steve had encouraged me to buy a home. He was at that point in contract with his home in Austin. And so I was like, okay, like, how do I do this? How do I live really below my means, which is hard to do in California. So yeah, just like sacrificing sometimes having fun or at least having fun for less. And then the amount of time, because there were times in the beginning of all this, like for example, one time, Steve invited me out with friends. We had known each other a couple months and I just moved to California for him. But he was like, yeah, come out with me and my friends. And it was a Friday night. And I was like, I have work to do. And he's like, what do you mean you have work to do? It's Friday night. But at that point, I was working on starting my own agency. And so there was my full-time job and I had to put the time during the day into that. And so at that point, I was like, well, I have to put evening time into this. And if I don't go out with him tonight, I was going to make $500 for the project I was working on. And in my mind, I was like, I could go out tonight and probably spend money or stay home and make $500. And so I, at that point, made the decision to be like, no, I'll catch you tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
And how many would make that decision if given the opportunity? It's like, I got to have fun while I'm young, I want to dig into a different topic, but before we leave this one, let's just pretend that the 18-year-old version of yourself sits in this chair instead of you and wants the life that you're living right now. What's the number one piece of advice you would give an 18-year-old Eva to achieve where you're at today?
Honestly, it would be to pray, because that is like what I truly believe led me here, was in those moments where there was the split path and your life could have gone two different ways. Like, I feel like I was good at praying and listening to what I felt God was leading me to. And so to be able to make the sacrifices I did of sometimes not having fun and sacrificing time and, living below my means, it was all because of guidance of prayer and which way I wanted my life to go. Because if I just lived in the moment constantly and didn't plan for the future, I'd be in a really different spot than I am right now.